The dancing reflection. The dancing reflection was a phenomenon occurring at Clark High School that is simply bizarre. If it wasn't for the side effects that ruined people's lives, everyone would have written it off as an accidental bad drug trip. In 1985, an old artifact was discovered by the organizers of the senior prom. This was a large, golden-framed mirror. It looked like something out of a fairy tale. So the girls decided to use it for their prom and set it as a fairy tale theme. The night of the big event, it was positioned in front of a pretty backdrop, something for couples to take pictures with. An immortalized moment that was caught on camera. Unfortunately, the flash of the camera triggered the mirror and activated its unusual ability. As the night progressed, people started noticing that there were strangers showing up, dancing with them as well. More and more people showed up, and the people attending didn't know them from school or classes. Talking to them didn't do anything either. The newcomers didn't respond at all to questions or shouted demands. Finally, one person got annoyed and went to shove at the stranger. In an instant, the stranger's body warped and distorted as the person fell through them and vanished. Panicked, they stopped the music and tried to leave, but the doors refused to open. The windows would similarly not budge as well. The strangers didn't stop showing up or dancing either. They would fade in and out as the night progressed. One more person tried touching one of the strangers, and like the previous person, the stranger warped and vanished, taking the person with him. For the rest of the night, the people attending stuck to the walls and actively avoided any of the shades that were dancing around them. The sun rose, and the last of the shades vanished, and the people who attended were able to unlock the doors and leave, ready to share the story of the horrifying night that happened to them. No one was prepared for 47 missing people that vanished a decade ago to show up in the same clothing they wore that night. The group of seniors and the chaperoning teachers have been marked missing long enough for them to be declared dead. At first, no one believed them that they were the people they claimed to be. Some poor-in-taste joke that's been repeated before the prior years. They even had prior people who claimed the same appear, with one of them being committed to an asylum. The first person had broken in one of the senior dances in 1990, and after a moment of confusion attacked someone, demanding to know where his girlfriend was. He was quickly restrained and arrested when the cops were called. He had no identification, and the person who he had claimed to be went missing 5 years ago. The cops even agreed that he looked like one of the missing people, but to have not aged put a large hole in his story, especially with no one to actually come forth and ID him. The only ones who could had moved away years ago to get away from the reality of their missing son or brother. As they believed the person to be mentally unsound, they had him committed. A similar incident happened in 1993. A random girl appeared at prom night, knocking herself unconscious in the process. The girl was rushed to the hospital, where when waking up, claimed to be a person who was reported dead. The doctors couldn't find her family, her father having taken his life when his daughter vanished, and they eventually came to the conclusion that she was the victim of being held captive and brainwashed into believing that she was such a person, escaping when the chance was given. That girl with therapy and heavy medications was able to accept the truth that she was kidnapped and tortured until she came up with an alternate reality. She was able to get adopted by a nice foster family, and with help was able to continue her life and go on to college. She ended up living a good life. For the 47 people to reappear, all with the same story, it was hard to disprove that their story was false. That they themselves had family members that never gave up looking for them, and them knowing information and matching physical descriptions to the missing people. It was no doubt that these were the missing senior class. Investigation into their story had people talking to prior students of Clark High. A lot who had an interesting story to tell of their senior proms and the pretty interesting ghost effects of extra people dancing with them. The people couldn't be clearly seen, their figures hazy and such. People just put it down to a special effect that someone worked hard to make the night extra memorable. So the Clark class of 85 was declared alive again. With some aid, they were all relocated and allowed to continue their lives. The agency helped updating their records and did their best to reunite them with surviving family members, explaining to them a story about being kidnapped by terrorists. The boy who appeared earlier and was committed unfortunately went insane. He was left in the asylum, while for the girl it was decided to gently break the news to her. She was just relieved that she wasn't crazy or had been tortured. The agency eventually discovered records of the mirror and found, when exposed to sudden light, will project people forward in time. It was mythed to belong to a European castle and was used to keep the ruling family safe from invaders by trapping their attackers. The mirror was carefully taken to an undisclosed area, and its whereabouts is highly classified.